Welcome everyone to the Speaking Part 2 Personal Experience Analysis. Before we start, I want to remind you that I will be following the Speaking Part 2 Personal Experience Tips and Strategies Guide. Now, you can find this guide in our CELPIP library in Speaking Part 2. And right over here is the Speaking Part 2 Tips and Strategies video. Now this video explains very clearly the guide and how to use it effectively to achieve your score. And in this analysis, I will be following the tips and strategies provided in that guide. If you would like to see that video and to get a better idea of the guide, please go to our library and you can watch that video. Okay, now let's get started with today's example of speaking part 2. Okay, everyone, let's read today's part 2 personal experience question. Okay, talk about something you would like to do to protect the environment. Okay, protect the environment. Big topic. Well, it's been a big topic in academics for a while. Now in CELPIP, I've noticed more questions like this these days. Readings about environment, but also even speaking questions. And this one was there recently, okay? And so it says you can talk about something you can do in your house, maybe recycling more, using energy efficient appliances or other electronics at work, the same, okay? Or an organization you have heard about. So there are many environmental organizations around. I know many that I follow myself. Okay, so it says, what is it? How can you do it more often? Or how can you do it? And how can it protect the environment? Okay, now we're going to build a 7 to 9 answer. Okay, everyone. Now I do want to say that for 7 or higher, part 2 is not really the question that can make it or break it for you, because part 2 is actually a low level question. It's more for levels 4 to 6. But at the same time, there are ways where you can show your English knowledge and language knowledge in part 2, more so than in part 1 or part 6 or 7. And I'm going to try to show that here. I know there's one very good way. And also, it's a way for you to show how much control you have of your speech. Because part 2 should be an easy question in terms of its complexity. So it's easy for us to answer, okay, because it's a personal experience. But this means that we should try to use higher level structures. And I'm going to get to that. I'm going to try to show that to you. And I will remind you that I am using the guide, very important for any level, but more so for higher levels, organizing a response. In part 2, it's easier. Introduce the question, answer the first point, the second point, and the last point. Remember that in part 2, it always gives us some more questions or some points that we need to mention in our answer, okay? So let's start by answering the question. Okay. Or introducing the question, sorry. I'd like to speak about an environmental initiative I've been considering, and that's placing more recycling bins around my neighborhood. Okay, so right from the beginning, you can see I'm already using stronger language, environmental initiative. And what I really want to emphasize is perfect tenses, present perfect continuous. These tenses are not part of the 4 to 6 language use. Level 4, 5, rarely ever. Level 6, maybe they might use present perfect, but 7 or higher, we need to use that. Whenever we have the opportunity to use present perfect continuous or present perfect, we need to maximize that use. And in terms of this question right now, I'm talking about a personal experience. I'm talking about from the past until now. I've been considering this. I've been considering taking this action. Okay, so there you go. All right. So that's one really good point I want to make. Second, let's get to our first part, which is what is it? Well, I've already said that's placing more recycling bins. So I'm just going to try to explain that. Here I go. First of all, I've been noticing, again, from the past until now, I've been noticing that local residents have been dumping their trash in garbage cans around the parks and walkways without considering if the materials are recyclable or not. So I've seen all types of recyclable materials like plastics, paper, cardboard, and even electronics. That's true, actually. It's true. I'm telling you this from personal experience. Well, Canada being such an well developed country, I'm very surprised that we really are not here in my hometown of Edmonton. They're really I'm comparing to places I've traveled around the world, like South Korea, I lived there before, and Japan. They have all types of recycling bins throughout the city. But here in Edmonton, I'm talking about my neighborhood more so, I've noticed that that is lacking. There's only one garbage bin next to the bus stop or around trails through the parks. And sometimes you can't even find one. And for that matter, or for that reason, um, I've just seen so many materials in there that I just want to dig them up and take them to the recycling depots. We do have recycling depots, but that's like you need to collect it and you need to drive there and take it there. Anyways, this is what I'm trying to say. Now, getting back to the question. Again, I'm being smart here. I want to get 7 or higher. And specifically, I'm targeting 9 or higher. I need to use present perfect. I need to. Now, I'm sure that you don't have to. You can say, first of all, I saw. Low levels will say, I saw. And you can say, I see that, but this is low level. Whenever we have the chance to demonstrate our language use, our higher language use, we have to. And like I said, in part 2, we have this opportunity to use past continuous, to use present perfects, to use future perfects, things like this. Because in part 1 and part 6 and part 7, it's not something where or there's less opportunity to show that. Okay? Present perfect continuous is something that, so again, I'm being smart here and I'm using it. Same here, I've seen. Now, seen, we can't say I've been seeing, so I've seen. Okay? All right, so that's very important. Again, this here is definitely already higher level. Okay? And that explains what is it? What is it that I want to do? Okay? So placing more bins for this reason. Now, how can you do it more often? Okay. So, for that matter, for that reason, for this situation, I've been thinking of asking the city to install separate recyclable waste bins instead of just one. For example, bins for plastics, paper, and cardboard, and maybe one for other recyclables. Okay, so again, my grammar use is very strong. And I can kind of see here that language wise, I do have vocabulary in here that also is not part of the even 7 to 8 vocabulary range in terms of knowing about materials and other parts here instead of just one. So, and so for that matter, for that reason, that's a good phrase. But I do need to remember that I'm only going to be speaking for 1 minute. So right now I'm developing an answer that I can say in 1 minute. Sure, I can go on, but that's not what we want to do. So I said, how am I going to achieve this? I'm going to ask the city to install more recycling bins. And now we're going to get to the last part, and how can it protect the environment? Okay, personally, I always like to end the personal experience question, or I suggest to you to try to end it with personally. And again, I'm just following the structure. Personally, I think this would certainly reduce our waste footprint. Waste footprint. Carbon footprint. How much carbon we produce. Waste footprint. How much waste we produce. And we want to reduce that for the environment, especially in terms of recyclable materials. So we want to reduce that and we want to recycle. But more than anything, I think it's time to put our foot down. And send the message that we all need to do our part for the environment. I've said it before and I'll say it again, very strong to use an expression. And I saw the opportunity here. I saw the opportunity. This is talking about people or the residents in my neighborhood not recycling. So I took that and I saw the opportunity where I can use put my foot down. Put my foot down means take action or stop doing something. So this means, everyone, it's time to put our foot down. We need to be strong. We need to do something strong. We need to say what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. Let's take a stand. So that's what it's saying here. It's saying, more than anything, I think it's time for us to take action. And we need to send the message that we all need to do our part for the environment. And again, I'm talking to my local residents. I'm putting my foot down while also talking to the city. I'm putting my foot down and I'm telling them, hey, everyone, let's reduce our waste footprint. Especially, we need to recycle. Sorry, I'm getting carried away, but this is really a personal experience. And I do feel that way about my neighborhood. Surprisingly, like I said, in Canada, well, more so in my hometown of Edmonton, I know that I lived in Vancouver before, and it's a little bit, they have more initiative over there, but still, it's an issue. And again, in comparison to other countries where I've lived. Okay, so everyone, strong answer. Now, I think there are many things that make it 9 here, 9 or higher. Let's talk about the language use, the grammar use, present perfect continuous. Okay, the vocabulary, recyclable materials, cardboard, paper, plastic, electronics, waste bins. I'm sure that level 7 and 8, they don't have this vocabulary. I can tell you that, okay? They don't need this vocabulary. You don't need this kind of high level vocabulary. vocabulary for lower levels, sorry. But we need it for higher levels. Present perfect continuous again. And this expression, very strong to use anytime you can use an expression. Very strong, okay? Now, is it enough just to use this vocabulary and use this grammar? No, no, it's not enough, okay? Because still, at the end of the day, what's important is the totality of the answer. In speaking, it's about starting and completing the answer in the given time. In 1 minute, we need to start and we need to complete. So everyone, what I wanted to illustrate more than anything in this answer is the use of present perfect continuous and the use of stronger language and the use of another expression, which I am usually doing that. If you check the other videos, please check the other speaking and writing videos, and you will see how I use expressions to make it stronger, okay? And also the connection. Look at the connection. Everything here in blue, this is all our structure. This is our sequencing. This is also something that higher levels can do well. Not so much 7, 8, but 9 or higher, definitely. Okay? So lastly, of course, it's about our delivery. How are we going to speak this answer? Okay, we need to be clear. We need to use proper intonation, or sorry, more native intonation to sound more natural. The more natural, the more native you sound, the higher your score. So let me speak this in 1 minute. Please follow along and please listen to my intonation and flow, okay? I'd like to speak about an environmental initiative I've been considering, and that's placing more recycling bins around my neighborhood. First of all, I've been noticing that local residents have been dumping their trash in garbage cans around the parks and walkways without considering if the materials are recyclable or not. So, I've seen all types of recyclable materials like plastics, paper, cardboard, and even electronics. So, for that matter, I've been thinking of asking the city to install separate recyclable waste bins instead of just one. For example, bins for plastics, paper, and cardboard, and maybe one for either recyclables. Personally, I think this would certainly reduce our waste footprint, especially in terms of recyclable materials. But more than anything, I think it's time to put our foot down and send the message that we all need to do our part for the environment. So, there we go, everyone. I was able to say it there in the 1 minute. And, well, again, it's this length of answer doesn't have to be this long either. I want to make that clear. I think that we don't need it to be this long. We don't even need to speak the full minute. We can speak 55 seconds. But having a complete answer is very important, everyone. Starting and finishing before the minute, it's very important. And then, of course, like I've already mentioned over and over through this analysis, the language used in this example is very strong. Present perfect continuous, it's a stronger tense to use. And 7 to 8s, they know present perfect continuous and present perfect. They know about it, but it's not part of their language use. So we have to make it part of it. Now, many people say that's because present perfect continuous, it's not common. That's wrong. That's wrong. Present perfect continuous is very common. I would say that native speakers use it every day at some point throughout the day. Now, it's true that it's not as common as the simple tenses, and that's why 7 to 8s don't use it so much because it's not common. But native speakers, they use it daily, or you listen to it daily, or you read it daily at some point. So, for that reason, level 9s, we need to try to use it not just in part 2. Again, as I said earlier, maybe in part 2 we can have more opportunity to use it. But I think in the other parts it's also possible. So, language use here, grammar use, important. And of course, our expression. Our expression is very good. Anytime we can use an expression, or let's try to use an expression, that would be very strong. How do we improve? Well, I can tell you, how can you start using this language more and more in your speaking? Well, how about rereading and repeating this answer? I've helped students, or I've seen students improve from 7 to 9 in 1 month. In 1 month, how? Well, they reread and try to speak these answers using this language. And the more that you repeat it and speak it, the more that it becomes part of your knowledge, everyone. That's very important. That's right, exactly like I say. Practice makes perfect. So let's practice. I would like to remind you that if you're looking for some more listening, reading, writing, or speaking CELPIP exam practice, then you should definitely subscribe to our CELPIP library. The CELPIP library has hundreds of examples of listening, reading, writing, and speaking, which will help you develop your score, whatever the score you need. Also, the library contains vocabulary, listening skills, reading skills, grammar, and writing skills exercises, which will really help you improve your general understanding of English and also for the exam. So, and you can purchase a 1 month pass or a 2 month or a 3 month subscription for a very low price. And of course, if you really enjoyed this content, then please like this video, share it, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way we will keep on producing more CELPIP analysis for your development. Have a great day.